Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to One on One with Ray McGuire, our next mayor. At least he's ranking my number one and should be ranking your number one. And we're going to have a good conversation tonight. Ray is going to be joining us talking about him being out in the streets, campaigning and talking to voters one on one, asking them to rank him number one to be our next mayor of New York City. And we're also going to talk about ranked choice voting this evening and make sure you have all of the information that you need in order to participate in this election, in this Democratic primary on June 22nd. And before I do that, though, I have someone that I'm going to bring up to have a conversation with us about Ray McGuire for mayor. I think she's biased, but Crystal.
Hi.
You were so good last week. We just had to bring you back.
I'm happy to be here. But I think when you talk about me being biased or subjective, I think it should be I am objectively subjective.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Don't tell me that's an oxymoron. I'm objectively subjective if there is such a thing.
If there is such a thing. And we're going to claim that is such a thing.
Claiming it.
One thing I will say is that we've been talking about Ray going out, breaking out from the computer screen from Zoom. And because, vaccines, people are getting vaccinated, because things are starting to open up. We're still practicing social distancing. We're still wearing masks. And Ray is more out and about meeting and engaging with voters. And you are doing the same.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have been, but that's, again, that's so much of what our lives have been about. Pre-pandemic, Ray and I have always been out in the streets, out in various communities, out in different neighborhoods throughout every borough, just invested in New York City. It's this, again, y'all didn't hear about it. You remember Ray was not on social media prior to running for mayor. He was an incredibly private person, but he was most importantly, he was someone that was just deeply committed to New York City, every aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
To community organizations, to arts and culture institutions, to the libraries, to building schools, to nurses, just, helping startups. So we've been out there. We just haven't, we have not been putting out press releases about it.
Well, that's his favorite line. He was like, he was a leader, but didn't lead by press release. And so we chuckle at that line, but it's the truth. Like, the receipts he talks about of how he invested in a number of different organizations and helping to build Black wealth, helping to build Black businesses, all that he talks about and he's put into his policy plans, which he can go further himself.
Sure.
This isn't something that he just dreamt up one day. This is something he's been consistently doing.
Right. I want to tell you a story. I don't know if you heard, because we're all deeply invested in Ray and this campaign. And I don't know if you heard any of the stories about when we were in the Bronx this past weekend, but this moment happened at a Dominican restaurant that Ray and I went to in the Bronx. And he's there speaking to several district leaders and members of the community, business owners about, an array of issues from air quality to, not only access to capital, but access to clients. Because even as a small business, you get access to capital, you still need access to clients and just, mentorship. And so as he's talking about this, he's fielding questions. This man walks up to him and he says, he just kind of puts his phone in Ray's face, his iPhone. And he said, sorry, Mr. McGuire, I just have to ask you. He said, do you know who this young man is? And he's like, has the phone up to Ray's face like that. And Ray said, yeah, that's my man. That's my guy, Melvin. And he said, well, I'm Melvin's father. He said, you saved my son's life. He's like, I came here from Washington Heights to talk to you. You met him when he was a waiter and you were being honored. And he, at that time, had run away from home. He had been homeless. He had gotten into to community junior college, but was a little bit lost. And he came up to you after seeing you being honored by New York Needs You, which is an organization that honors first generation college students. And Ray was the first in his family to go to college and graduate from college. But this young man, Melvin, said to Ray, just cold, I was so touched by your story. I just felt like I could talk to you. Would you be my mentor?
Mm.
It turned into Ray getting this young man a job at Citi at a very, entry level position. And it didn't stop there. And that never stops just there for Ray. When Ray goes in to help someone, to help a community, he goes in all the way. So he gets Melvin a job at Citi. He starts meeting with him whenever he's in town, at least, once, twice a month. And now Melvin has gotten into UPenn undergrad, graduated, now going to Wharton, and has just completely turned his life around. But it was just so touching. You never know whose life you're making an impact on. And Melvin's father wound up at this restaurant in the Bronx. He had come over from Washington Heights because he heard Ray was going to be there and wanted to thank him for saving his son's life.
Wow. That is, it's such I did hear that story earlier this week, and, watching Ray as we were retelling the story and him being bashful, kind of bashful about it, but his immediate response is being proud of the young man. Like, he's just like, oh, he's done so great. Right. And it's just really sort of pivoting back to the individual, right? Like, that he believes he played a small part in giving opportunity, giving resources, giving support. But then it is the individual who is doing the hardest job, right? Who's doing the greatest work. And, as you know, in our conversation, that is what connected me to want to join Team Ray to begin with. Because, I didn't know y'all really, I knew you, but I didn't know Ray, before this. And, I was highly skeptical, and when I sat across from him and I told you, the line he said is that he wants to bend New York City to give opportunity and resources and support to those who have been historically marginalized in this city, and, to give, not make it that people are lucky, right, that they get a good education, or lucky that they get to participate in an MWBE program, or lucky that they know somebody that knows somebody, right? Like, that it should be an opportunity for everyone. So, later about us, but what I want to get to before he joins us, and for those of you who are putting questions, keep your questions coming, because Ray is coming on. And when Ray comes on, don't worry. As those of you who have been on Friday night before, we don't skip. We let him answer the questions directly. So I see some of you putting questions in the comments in the chat right now. Keep doing that. And when he joins us, we'll have him answer those questions directly, because you don't want to hear from us. You want to hear from the man who's got the plan, who said he wants to be mayor. So we're going to make sure to do that. But we do have a job, Crystal.
Yes.
So one of the things that was really important to Ray during this race is making sure that people are educated about participating in the election this cycle. Sure. And that's totally because we do have a major change in terms of this election. We'll be using a form of ranked choice voting for participating in the election for mayor and a couple of other races that we're going to go through. And it was really important to him that as part of the campaign, we have a voter education component as part of the campaign to educate voters. Whether you're going to rank him number 1, number 2, or number 3, he wanted to make sure that everybody is aware. And so, Crystal, I know you text me during the week with questions and what is the date for registration and when is this? Right. So I figured, why not? Let's just do it for the people, like you and me together, and we can talk about ranked choice voting and what's coming up. So
I'd love to have a spread. What is this? So you got a PowerPoint.
Listen,
You don't do this part-time. Wow.
I'm an overachieving Black woman. You know what? We come ready
Wow.
with PowerPoints.
I thought you were about to go like this on this date and this date. You break out PowerPoint?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I got PowerPoints and dates. Okay. So for local and primary elections, we are going to be using ranked choice voting for city council, for borough president, public advocate, comptroller, and for mayor. So it's not just the mayor's race, Crystal, that you're going to be ranking candidates, but everybody's up for election. Your city council representative, your borough president, public advocate, comptroller. So you will have the option to rank up to 5 candidates in each of those contests. And if you don't like none of the people for your city council candidate, you can still do a write-in, Crystal.
Okay. That's nice to know. I won't be doing a write-in, but it's good to know
that you have the option.
That would like to do it, that they have an option. And the biggest thing I think we would say, what we want is we want people to participate.
Exactly.
Right?
And so in order to win, candidates will need 50% plus 1 of the vote in order to win. Okay. Now, here's some important dates. This is something you text and ask me about all the time, right? The last day to register to vote, May 28th. So we still have, coming up on 30 days that if you are not yet registered to vote in this election, you can do so.
I have a question about Joy. So it says May 28th is the last day to register to vote. For whom? How can you qualify to register to vote?
Okay, so you must be, because this is a Democratic primary. This is a primary election. So you must be registered in one of the particular parties that have a primary. So that Ray is running in the Democratic Party. To vote for Ray, you must be a registered Democrat in order to do that. If you were already registered and not in a party, unfortunately, that date has passed in terms of changing your party enrollment. But if you are registering for the first time, say you just moved here or from another state or for something like that, the last day to register is May 28th. And that's when you can register as a new voter. Now, if you moved within the state, right, and you need to change your address, the last day to do that is June 2nd. So let's say you moved from the Bronx to Brooklyn, although I don't know a lot of people that are doing that from Bronx to Brooklyn, but if it so happens and you need to change your address, you can do that. If you're moving from Syracuse to New York City, in order to change your address, the last day to do that is June 2nd. Now we get to the good part, to the voting, Crystal, because there are 3 ways that you can vote in the election. You can vote by absentee or vote by mail, and you can actually do that right now. You can go to New York City Absentee and request an absentee ballot so that when ballots become available, yours will come in the mail. You can vote by mail, send it back, right? So you have to vote by mail. The next option is to early vote. Early vote starts June 12th, Saturday, June 12th to Sunday, June 20th will be the early voting period. So you can go on the weekend and do that. So that's June 12th to June 20th. And then the absolute last day to vote, Crystal, is Election Day. June 22nd, polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And it's also the last day to actually postmark your absentee ballot, or you can actually drop it off at a poll site. So, we're going to be repeating this information, believe you me, to make sure that you have all the information you need to actually participate in this election.
Can I be the annoying student, though? Only because Ray and I know we have an 18-year-old. Ella's 18. But she has a number of friends who are 17, Joy, but that will be turning 18 in June. So can they register to vote if they turn 18 before June 22nd or by June 22nd?
Okay, Crystal, I'm going to have to take you on the road with me. Of course, if you are going to be age eligible to vote by June 22nd, you can pre-register, because you will be eligible to vote on Election Day, and you can go ahead and do that as well. And the last day to register in order to do that would be May 28th.
Do you have an inspirational quote that you give to young people who may not be inspired to vote that gets them to vote and understand the importance of voting?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and I actually don't use quotes as an inspiration. Okay. What I actually use is asking young people what matters to them in their community, and then giving them the information about how their vote or who they are voting for actually impacts that thing that they care about. So if you care about student loan debt, and how much you are accumulating, you know, to be able to talk about what can happen on the federal level, what your congressional member can do in terms of addressing that is the reason why you want to. If you want to get hyper local, right? You know, you really care about the high school that you went to and, you know, the administration of that. You care about your community having access to resources. You really care about you having a job. You know, you talking about making sure that a mayor and that there is city council people that care about and are centering your needs and what you are looking for in terms of this economy. Then once you make that connection in terms of what matters to people, making sure that they understand how their vote contributes to that.
Thank you. I'll save more questions for later because I can just go on and on and on. But we have a PowerPoint.
Okay, let's get to ranked choice voting, though, on how ranked choice voting works. So this is an example of what the ballot may look like. Because remember, I told you there's mayor, there's controller, there's public advocate, you're a council member, right? So you will have it laid out on a sheet that you will get, a ballot that you will get. Now, here's a tip. Your ballot may be 2 pages. This time, because according to the law, a ranked choice voting election can't be on the same side as a non-ranked choice voting election. So you may have to turn the ballot over to vote for judges or to vote for district attorney, depending on where you live. In Manhattan, there's a district attorney primary. So you will have to turn that ballot over or use another ballot that they will give you in order to vote in that election. So it's really important that you, once the ballot drafts are out, that you pay attention to what is out from there. So you definitely want to do that. And then you'll have the various options, right? First choice, second choice, third choice, fourth, and fifth. You can rank up to 5. We're going to get into the Q&A on whether or not you need to do all of them or not. But that is what you want to do. And as you know from Ray's campaign, what does Ray want you to rank him, Crystal?
Rank Ray McGuire, number 1 for New York City mayor.
There you go.
Inclusive comeback. And I have not been practicing that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the next piece is that in order to win, remember, you need 50% plus 1, right? So if we do all of the rounds, people that voted by mail, people that early voted, people that voted on election day, and Ray gets 50% plus 1, guess what, Crystal? We're done. Ray's the next mayor. Get ready for the most inclusive comeback.
Hey, hey.
Okay. But, you know, if that doesn't happen, then the rounds begin. And it's only when all of the ballots are received. So that early vote I talked about, election night ballots, the absentee and the overseas military ballots. So on election night, what we'll get, you know, people are used to knowing who the winner is on election night. You probably won't know that, you know, just get comfortable with it. But so they'll just release the information on the number of ballots, but the round by round will be released. And what happens is people get eliminated starting from the bottom, you know, in terms of who got the least votes. And then remember, you have ranked Ray number 1. Ray will stay in all the way through the rounds. But let's say you ranked somebody else number 1, they get eliminated. Then those votes are redistributed to the next candidate from there. So that's how counting works. But what you do as a voter, I want to be clear on this. What you do as a voter is really simple. You walk into the booth, you get handed your ballot, you're going to rank your candidates in each contest 1 through 5. You're going to flip the ballot over or use the other ballot and vote in all of the contests and put it in the scan machine and you are done. Right? So what you do as a voter is real simple. Following along on the counting is what we also want you to be aware of. So some questions. How many candidates do you rank, Crystal?
5.
Yes. So this is really important because I get this question a lot. Do you have to use all 5 rankings? And let me tell you, there's a thing that's called exhausted ballots. So let's say, Crystal, you walk into the booth, you're ranking your candidates for mayor, and you only rank one candidate for, let's say, city council. If that one person you ranked for city council gets eliminated, well, then your voice is no longer on the table for the rest of the rounds. So it's important for you to make sure you have your voice on the table in every counting round. Then you should rank all 5 candidates. Make sense?
Yes, makes absolute sense. You're doing great.
Can you rank Ray more than once? This is also a question that we get.
Ooh.
No, please do not do that because you will spoil your ballot in New York City.
Does that mean it's eliminated?
Yes.
So if you rank Ray or any candidate for that matter more than one time, your ballot is invalidated?
It is. Now you can have an opportunity to fix it, right? So if you are voting at, say, early vote or on election day, what'll happen is when you go to scan your ballot, it'll tell you that's a problem. And then you can go back and get another ballot and correct, right?
Okay.
But what happens if you're at home and you do an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, right? You have to know that you messed up and then go to try to fix it. Right. So you want to make sure that you are doing it correctly, reading all the directions in order to make that happen. Make sense?
It makes absolute sense, but we really need to make sure people know this. Because the other thing, just people aren't paying attention, but we're making them pay attention. They're starting to pay more attention. Which is one of the things, I'm glad you're doing this, Eljoy, because I know they're watching on Facebook Live. I mean, I'm getting texts and I'm getting messages from students for Ray, young leaders for Ray, LGBTQ for Ray, women for Ray, which just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of tech for Ray, lawyers for Ray, Filipinos for Ray. They're all tuned in. They keep texting me.
Yeah.
They're messaging and they're saying, thank you, Joy. She's so wonderful. Did she come and talk to our groups? I was like, I don't know. She's gonna talk to all you groups.
You trying to hire me out. Well, look, I'm going to bring one of my colleagues into this conversation, Crystal. I think you've met him before. Rod.
Hi, Rod. You made it to the club. We got the reverb.
Yeah, Rod is so eager that he's in the show multiple times. Oh boy, but
Rod will get it together.
Yeah, Rod will get it together. But in the meantime, what I'm going to there you are, Rod.
Hey, sorry about that.
You were so eager. You were in here multiple times. You were trying to get the party started multiple times.
Don't blame it on the raspberry.
Oh, you know what?
I've had a week.
Have you? Oh, bless you. What? But do you have a glass of something, Eljoy?
I don't have a. I have
a dusty old water bottle over here.
Well, Ray is going to ask Rod. I'm going to bring Ray into this conversation because he just came in from the streets. Ray McGuire for mayor. Hey there, Ray.
What is happening? Y'all talking about ranked choice voting?
Yeah.
If you describe ranked choice voting, you know my description of ranked choice voting?
What?
Rank Ray 1.
That's it.
Wait. Choose Ray 1.
Yes.
Vote Ray 1. Ranked choice voting. I got you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what ranked choice voting means. I know you got a detailed tutorial.
Oh my goodness.
They taking notes. Chris is going to help you read the questionnaire.
No.
That's like I got a simplified version. I got my version of ranked choice voting. Rate Ray 1. Choose Ray 1 and vote for Ray 1. That's ranked choice voting. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Well, Ray, I'm Crystal and I are a little salty because Rod came with a martini. You got to show Ray this, Rod.
Rod, come on, man. You showing off now, man.
You really are.
You invite me to a party, I'm going to bring something to drink.
Right, Rod, you showing off, man. Look at you. You sipping that like you used to it.
Oh, yeah. You missed the
Hey,
technical
hold on.
difficulty.
I'm gonna when I get off screen for a second, honey, I'm gonna bring you a treat. Okay.
But that means you coming to see me, mommy, because that's always a treat.
Oh, Joe, the sappiness.
Oh,
Good heart. It's a good heart.
yeah.
Okay, for that, Crystal, I'm gonna kick you off screen so you can go get it.
Well, I'm gonna drink
I do that in the Peloton ride.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Wow, I know how to do that. I can't do it again, but I know how to do that.
Are you done with me, or shall I come back on? I mean,
No, Crystal, thank you for holding it down, for being a perfect surrogate for Ray until he got here in order to answer. We appreciate you, and thank you for being a diligent student on ranked choice voting and voter education overall.
You know what I was going to ask you? Is there any way you could put? Is there a link we could put in the chat for people to register to vote? Is that possible to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our team will do that right away.
Okay. All right. Thank you, El Joy. And I just want to thank you again and salute you. And we are so blessed, El Joy, to have you on our team. Just your commitment and passion and brilliance that you bring to Team Ray is something that we will always be grateful to you for. So we're really
LJ straight up genius. Okay, that's what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
All right, y'all doing too much sappiness for me.
Okay, mommy, thank you.
Ray, so you were out in these streets?
Oh Lord, Joy, I've been to Brooklyn, I've been to Queens, I've been to Harlem. I've been there. It was like, and then I came home and talked to the Baptist convention. They must have 200 to 300 people on that call.
Well, that's
I brought the word, but I brought the word. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I'm not even going to say there. Before we get to questions, and we have a lot of questions coming up in the comments, and if you still have questions, drop them in the chat. Ray is not too shy to answer the questions that you have.
I don't think anybody ever called me shy. If they did,
yeah.
I'm a little.
They've never met you.
That's right.
So, Rod, we wanted an opportunity to be able to highlight some of Team Ray who are out in the streets in New York City working for you and with you. And so, Rod, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about why you joined Team Ray and how you're working with Ray to make him the next mayor.
Thanks so much. I'm a big news junkie, Joy, and you know that already. When I saw that Ray McGuire was running, I was just like, this is interesting. Then a friend of mine that works at City, a low level, he's in a catering operation, and told me, you need to check out my guy, Ray McGuire. I said, okay, why not? I looked into his story, and then I looked at his backstory, which wasn't all that public. I was like, this is an interesting man. Now, I've been active in political activism for about 10 years now. I got a late start, but I know a few things about New York City politics, and I know what works and what doesn't. We've made a lot of progress. I focus on the LGBT constituency. We've had a lot of luck in the past 10 years. A lot of things have gone well. But at the same time, I see a lot of those operational inefficiencies that don't happen and those things that aren't working for our city. And just as a basic New Yorker who gets a flat tire on his bike every time he goes for a ride, gets a flat tire on his car every time he goes for a drive, every trips on the sidewalk every time he goes for a walk. I know this city needs more. I know that we need somebody who cares about the nitty gritty of this city and wants to, that rhymed, I'm proud of that, the nitty gritty of this city, and who doesn't mind digging in to make sure that the city is working at its fullest function. And when I read about Ray McGuire, I called a few people. I saw that his politics were good and the man was good and his life was good. And like me, he came from the Midwest to achieve his dreams here. So I kind of felt a little bit of a bond there. And so I called a few people and they said, call this person. And then I got to know Taquana Henderson Rivers. And Taquana's eventually became my political mother. And she's a mother to a lot of people on this team. And she brought me in. And then one day I found myself on a Zoom with Mr. Ray McGuire. I said, I like this man. He has great questions. He's really smart. And he made me feel comfortable immediately. And now y'all have gotten to know Ray through Zooms. How many Zooms have you done, Ray?
Oh Lord, it's got to be
track after the 500th.
Yeah, yes, about 500. That would begin the start. Yes, 500.
So, the city was getting to know Ray through the Zooms and got a little comfort zone. I got to know Ray really well. Got to know, everything in that room that you're in so often for a Zoom really well too. And now suddenly we're getting a little bit more free. I'm fully vaccinated. Very happy to report that. Ray is fully vaccinated. And I finally got to meet the man, Ray McGuire. And, I got the comfort level with the Zoom, but I didn't get the mayor quality that I got now. You get to know Ray McGuire, and then you see him in public, and you get to see him talking to the people. That's the exciting part, because he's listening to their questions and answering them with solutions. He's got the policy. Look at the website. If you have not gone to the website, it's rayformayor.com. You've got to look at every policy proposal, because you'll understand as a New Yorker. You know that we've got our problems with policing. They're not insurmountable. We've got problems with education. They're not insurmountable. We've got problems with our business operations and our comeback from this horrible pandemic that we've been through. It's not insurmountable. And he's looking at these problems and he's providing answers for them. And they're not just political platitudes. They're the real choices that a man who has looked at these things, analyzed the hell out of them, and found the solutions that we need. And that's why it's exciting to be on Team McGuire, and I'm so proud to be here. But
wow.
So,
Wow. Hey, keep drinking, man.
No. That's just half a martini. You should hear me after the full one.
Oh my gosh.
I got to tell you, Rod, that is just, you say it, Joy. That's powerful.
I mean, it is really, Ray.
All day.
Yeah, it really is, Ray. Refreshing to again get to know you. Although we try not to encourage you about being funny, but you really are engaging in person, and I'm glad that.
Wait, hold up.
I'm on Team Dad Jokes. Make a joke.
Hello, I got some great jokes though. I'm known for my humor. You know that.
I don't think that you're known.
Rhymes. I can drop the lines. I'm saying.
I don't think. No.
Well, we did you remember that? You remember the Kings of Comedy?
Oh God!
You're talking about what you some milk and coffee.
Oh my God! We're gonna go to questions now.
I want some milk and cookies.
We're gonna go to questions now. Rod, thank you so much for being Team Ray.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Enjoy, okay.
I'll see you tomorrow in Stuytown.
I'll see you tomorrow in Stuytown. All in. I'll see you there, man. Should I take my bike down there? Should I take my bike?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. We good.
See you there.
All right. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Rod.
So we have some questions, Ray.
You asked me about my humor, weren't you? You asked me about that?
No, I don't think anybody has a question about your humor.
The man sitting next to the man. Y'all don't know about that.
Okay. Moving on. So we're going to talk about, the first question is on education. This is from McPherson RJ on what you're going to do to desegregate schools in New York City. But related to that, I know, we try to get you time to read what's happening in the news every now and then, but it was released earlier as well that in the specialized high schools, only 8 Black students were admitted to Stuytown, I believe it is, and only 1 for another school. And so in talking about your education plan, if you can also look, we know the specialized high school is a small percentage of students, but people obviously have serious concerns about this.
On specialized high schools, the one test I've said in every forum, there's not a great educational institution anywhere in the world, from Tsinghua to Beida to Caltech to MIT, including the one that I was fortunate to attend. Not one relies on just one test. So it's clear that one test is not an appropriate process. My alma mater this year was able to admit the lowest acceptance rate and the most diverse class in its history. So we know it can be done. In many instances, they did not accept because our children couldn't take the SAT or any one of the standardized tests. And they were still able to achieve the lowest acceptance rates in the most diverse class, those who could pay, those who could least afford to pay, and they were able to do that. So I know it can be done. The reaction that we've gotten today to a system that was put in place maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago is an appropriate reaction. We need to change. We can keep the test, but let's expand and let's make certain that all of our children get access to what is going to be necessary for them to identify and for us to support their excellence. Not just one test. We need to have social emotional learning. We make sure we have the mental challenge that our children are facing, that we take care of that. We simply cannot afford the way that we have afforded today, which means we fail to have our children's lives determined by their zip codes. And my educational plan is to address that. We need to transform the entire educational system. It cannot be the random pre-K through 12. We got to be more intentional about it, and we got to be more systemic about it, because the time many of our kids get to pre-K, they're already behind. So we need to intervene today. It is tragic. It costs us $26,000 a year on average to educate our kids in our school system. It costs us $446,000 a year to take care of one inmate at Rikers Island. $26,000, $446,000. And if I randomly take 8 Black and brown fourth graders, 2, maybe 3 can read, we need to intervene today. My plan is cradle to career. I'm going to focus on before pre-K. I want to start at 0. I want to make certain we got the right affordable care in place for our parents to feel comfortable and safe, that our children are being taken care of. I want to invest in those caregivers, babysitters whom I respect deeply, but I want the caregivers, the professional caregivers who can go in and assess our children early to make certain that they're on track, and those who have got some challenges that we intervene early and that we begin to remediate early. And then from my account, I want to guarantee that by the end of the 3rd grade, every child in New York City can read and do math. Why is that? Because all the educators have told us that between 0 and the end of the 3rd grade, our children are learning to read. After that, they're reading to learn. We've lost far too many whom we didn't teach how to read. So we need to teach them how to read. From my account, whatever it takes, in New York City Tutor Corps, where we're going to take college-educated students, college students, certify them, summer jobs, retired teachers, let's get them back in the classroom, and existing teachers, whatever it takes. No child leaves the end of the 3rd grade without being able to read and do math. 6th grade, digital and financial literacy. You got to have both. And digital may start earlier, because we move from an industrial world to the last minutes of the industrial world to the first minutes of the technology world. Our children need to know how to do math and be digitally literate. By the 8th grade, they get exposed to the possibilities of the future. They can be plumbers and welders. They can be software engineers. They can be botanists. They can be paleontologists or doctors. They can be artists. But they get exposed and they have a summer job. Summer jobs are critical. I had a summer job. I dug ditches. I laid tile. I DC'd IVs. I changed bedpans. I made boxes in the basement of Phil's dress shop. But I had a job and it kept me out of trouble. Put a little change in my pocket. By the 12th grade, and they do that in the 8th grade, it may be public-private partnerships that supply the summer internships, but they're paid. So by the 12th grade, our children have the choice of doing one of 3 things: going into that job career to which they've been exposed and had a summer job, going to a 2-year or 4-year college. We need to step in today. And I need to step in for the long term. That's intentional. That's cradle to career. And for those whom we've missed so far, we need to intervene today. I want to expand the school year and expand the hours for the summer, given COVID. Let's make sure that we allow our students to go to summer school. The parents can opt out, but I want to make sure that summer school is available for all of our children so that we don't deal with this COVID generation. And we got to get broadband. Got 1.5 million New Yorkers who don't have broadband. Many of those are Black and brown kids. We need to give them broadband. We need to give them broadband today, and tablets that work. And given the relationships that I have, and given the vision that I have, and given the experience that I have, we can make this happen. We can make this work, but we got to have the highest level of urgency. And I'm outraged at where we are today for our children. That's my plan.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that you talked about. The other thing that happened this week is your first in-person debate with candidates, and you talked a bit about education there as well. And about the focus of, that this, like, we really ought to be collectively shamed, in terms of what we have provided in terms of a public education for New York City school kids. And so I definitely know that is something that a lot of people appreciate, a real detailed plan about how to increase the education quality that we're given to New York City kids.
Joy, it is a travesty. This travesty, the crisis existed before COVID. It should not be the case. If I take 3rd through 8th grade, Black and brown boys and girls in math and in reading, 80% are below proficient. 80% are below proficient. Whether you use the nation's report card or the state's report card, we ought to be outraged. And it simply cannot be that our children's lives are determined by their zip codes. I know what it's like. I wouldn't be here without education. And every child in New York City ought to have the opportunity that education affords them. They got to have the education. Epictetus is the great Greek philosopher, says only the educated are free. And once you have it, they can't take it from you. You got to invest. We have to invest in our children's future and our children's lives today. Otherwise, there's no future for New York City. There's no future. There's no future. We need to invest in education today.
Definitely. So Rod mentioned earlier talking about those of us who have access to the vaccine. We're fully vaccinated. But there are a number of New Yorkers who still aren't. And, obviously we want to make sure that there's not another crisis that forces New York City to shut down in order to protect people's lives. But something else you put out this week was about incentives for people who are not yet vaccinated to actually get vaccinated. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, what we described is to incentivize New Yorkers to get the vaccine, understanding clearly the skepticism around the vaccine, given this country's appalling history at giving the vaccine to Black and brown New Yorkers and Black and brown Americans. So I get that. But I also get that we have those who have taken the vaccine. I have taken the vaccine. Others have taken the vaccine. So we need to do whatever we can to incentivize New Yorkers, first to educate and inform New Yorkers that it's okay to take the vaccine, that we'll survive taking the vaccine. So we need to do that with the right ambassadors, and hopefully I'm going to be one of those ambassadors to say it is okay. I've taken the vaccine and it has kept me safe. I want you to take the vaccine and it will keep you safe. We'll make sure that we can do that. And part of that is to inform, to get the vaccine into the healthcare and transportation deserts, which we'll deal with once I become mayor. But before that, let's get the pop-ups. Let's get the mobile vaccine. And let's incentivize New Yorkers with a $100 voucher that they can spend locally in support of our small businesses. So take the vaccine. It's safe. I'm going to give you a $100 voucher, which you can spend locally in support of our small businesses. It is a win-win. You win. The entire New York community wins. And the community that is the foundation of New York City, our small businesses win. So yes, take the vaccine. Yes, $100 voucher. Yes, let's move forward.
I like that. I like specifically that it's a voucher to reinvest in New York City, into the businesses that have been significantly impacted here in the city. And as another question comes up, Linda Steele mentions about rebuilding the creative economy in New York City, artists and creative workers who have been negatively impacted by COVID. So you can use that voucher for all kinds of things, not only, the small businesses creating, as my grandmother called them, trinkets, but also the artists and creatives in New York City. So how would you address rebuilding the creative economy in New York City?
So the creative economy is critical to New York City. This is 400 and some odd thousand jobs and $150 billion worth of revenue. It makes New York what it is. And so my response to that, I've been involved in the creative community for, 3 decades or so, sitting on boards, supporting boards in leadership positions, investing in the culturals, arts education, arts and culture, from Harlem School of the Arts to supporting figure skating in Harlem, to Museum of Natural History, to the Whitney Museum, to the Studio Museum in Harlem. So the arts are part of whom I am. New Museum, International Center for Photography, all of these are essential to whom I am, and they're essential to New York City. What my plan calls for, which is the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback in the history of the city. Inclusive means, yes, artists. And what I intend to do is to have a arts festival starting in 2022, and that arts festival is going to be year long. And I want to invest in the arts, making sure that we bring the arts out to the communities. One of the ideas that I have is an artist zone where we make it truly affordable for artists to live. And many of us may remember when we wrapped Central Park with Jean-Claude and Christo. I want to commission 5 artists per borough to create outdoor experiences for us in each of the boroughs. And during the summer, I want to make sure that we have art classes for our youth, for our children, so they can go to the park and explore. And have our elderly also go to the park and explore and have classes for them. Many of them are brilliant and creative, and we need to support that, both the elderly and our children. And for those adults, like me, let's see if we got some artistic sensitivities. In addition, clearly, to what I bring as humor, we can make certain that we have other kinds of artistic talent that gets celebrated during the course of the Arts Festival. And let's invest in the artists.
Okay, so I see where this is going. No, you cannot do a stand-up act as mayor.
That's a great idea. I had not thought of that. I had not thought about that. The mayor's comedy hour, and I can host it and tell the first joke or two. That stuff is going to be lit. Can you imagine that?
I cannot.
Some lines. I could do this. I can get this done. I know I can. You don't want me to do that?
No, I don't. And I'm going to go to the next question from Larry. Larry wants a question about how will you ensure that NWBE businesses benefit from the public-private partnerships that you've talked about? Because you talk about public-private partnerships in a lot of your plan, the economic plan overall, in terms of arts, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education. So how will you ensure that NWBE businesses also benefit?
Larry, it is a great question, and one that the answer to which, at least the analysis of which, not the answer, the analysis of which yields the following. In 2020, New York City spent $22.5 billion. 82% of the MWBEs got zero, nothing. MWBEs got 1.9 billion, or less than 5%. And so what my plan calls for is an investment in NWBEs. And I want to make certain that the Black and brown men and women businesses get to be part of that. So I will be intentional. For my overall small businesses, I'm going to have a deputy mayor for small businesses, and MWBEs combined that can go across agencies and have accountability across agencies to make certain of that $20+ billion that gets spent. Much of that gets spent in a disproportionate way today, because less than 5% of it, given the percentage population, we need to be more reflective of the population and to get more of the population involved in the economic comeback. So my plan is go big, go small, go forward. Going forward is making sure that the MWBs are included, making certain that we're included when it gets to technology, which is the world of the future, so that we have investments. I'm going to have an investment fund that is focused on making sure that we give MWBEs grants and low interest loans and equity, which is where my public-private partnerships come in. Equity with some of the existing equity entities that can invest alongside and provide the capital, the seed capital that's necessary, and making certain that the city can provide the capital in the form of debt or in the form of equity. But knowing how I know how this works, given the history that I've spent, the life that I've spent, the career that I spent in putting capital to work and creating more opportunity and more wealth than all the other candidates combined, because I have invested, I have mentored, I have made certain that I've gotten access to capital to those MWBE businesses, a number of which today have gone public. So we know how to do this, Larry. We just need to make sure we're intentional about it. We got the right people at the table. And when I identify the small business, the deputy mayor who's going to be empowered, who's going to have the capital, working with agencies like the EDC and others, but the deputy mayor is going to be focused just on this. The example that I have, the best example that I have, is what Maynard Jackson did in Atlanta, Georgia, or what Coleman Young did in Detroit, or what Harold Washington did in Chicago, or what Marion Barry did in Washington, D.C. There are examples here. Long ago, I'll modernize those examples, and given the availability of capital, Larry, make certain that that capital gets into the hands of Black and brown entrepreneurs, men and women, so that they can grow their business. And what I'll do is also cut up the contracts to make sure that they can get access to them, not just for one RFP, but for years, so they can grow their businesses and not end up simply being subcontractors, but being general contractors, being the primary contractors. We know how to go about doing this, which is exactly what we need to do, but we need to be intentional, and we need somebody who understands capital and the language of capital, which I do.
Well, Ray, it seems like you have plans.
I got a plan. I got a plan. You know what? For these plans, Joy, for these plans, all the plans I'm articulating are plans that, if I take my history of having had to have a vision, had to manage budgets, had to have a plan to manage those budgets. And if I hadn't, Joy, I'd have got fired. It ain't a popularity contest.
Well, what have you found the difference then of, shifting from, banking from Wall Street to now shifting to take that experience as you're out meeting with voters, with your fellow New Yorkers? What's one of the jarring differences? Because you still can get fired, and that's just the people deciding not to reelect you.
Yeah, but it takes a long time to do that. In my world, you don't take that long. You don't perform. And remember, I was in that job longer than anybody else in the history of the corporate world for 13 years. The difference is called accountability, right? You got to be held accountable. If you have a budget, you got to meet the budget. You're going to be held accountable for that budget. In this world, there's limited to no accountability, right? So you just look at the track record. People can make promises. They forget them after they make them. In my world, you make a commitment to meet the budget, you meet the budget. And there are quarterly reviews, so you can update on where you are. And if you're coming up short, you just got to say, this is, you can't do what happened was, you got to actually perform, and you're held accountable, which is the difference between what I have done and what all the others who, are career politicians have done. And there are many career politicians who have served, and I say that with the utmost respect and admiration, but I look at the lot that is now running for mayor. This is not the time to have somebody's first job be the mayor of New York City. In the midst of this crisis, where you need somebody who understands the language of capital and getting capital into our communities, unless you understand that, you're going to rely on one or two interpreters. And up to this point, those interpreters have not yielded much income or much capital to the community.
That's one of my biggest questions that I had as a voter going into, and this is something you and I talked about when we met, about someone not only with the management experience, but also that can make sure that as the city rebuilds and comes back, because New York City always does, one, that we have a hyper focus on those who are marginalized, who don't have as much, that New York City can't just be the playground for the wealthy, right? Like
it should not be.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then two, how do we rebuild our city to be better? Not just build it back, but how do we build it better? Like, and for the future and for resiliency. And I think that's what a lot of New Yorkers are looking for. They're not just looking to get by. Anybody who is looking at their own budget, looking at their own success, are looking at like, how do I not just get by, but how can I get further? Before COVID.
So the answer, Joy, is, I know what it's like to be a paycheck away from, a crisis. I know what that's like. My mother had to work 3 jobs, and then she became a social worker, which last I checked is not the highest paying job out there. That's a job of service. So I know what it's like. And I know what we have to do in order to make sure that those people are paying 50 to 60% of their income in rent don't have to pay that, because we got to build homes in which they can live with dignity, and homes where they can house their family and put, pay the rent and pay the utilities. And if they go to, church tithes and offering the church and put food on their table, I know what that's like, which is what we need to address today for the least of thee. My housing plan is going from homelessness to home ownership, and we have to have a vision for that. It cannot be that the status quo is that to which we aspire, because we've gone backwards, and going backwards will leave us in a worse place. As all others advance and we're going backwards, which is what has happened, it's going to leave us in a worse place. And so we need to address that, and we need to address that today, which is what my plan calls for. I want to make sure that the least of thee get included in the greatest economic comeback, starting with the small businesses, starting with those who have been excluded before, and making it possible for us to get the capital to the great ideas and marry the great ideas up with the capital, and get the mentors who have gone through this before, advising those people who got great ideas. They just have never put it on paper before and don't know how to access capital. That's what this is about, which is the track record that I have, the receipts that I've generated for doing just this. Mentor or mentees, the mentors allowed me through civil rights to get to where I am. And I'm trying to extend the ladder, as I have done to many, in making certain that the following happens, Joy. We have been outside for so long that they give us crumbs and they want us to feel full. I'm not interested in the crumbs. Matter of fact, I'm not interested in the cake. I'm interested in the MWBEs, especially black and brown businesses, owning the bakeries, which is that to which we need to aspire. Don't settle for the crumbs. We've settled for the crumbs. I'm not interested in the crumbs. We got to own the bakeries. We got to get the capital. Somebody knows how to get the capital to us to do that.
Well, we have time, I think, for one more question. And I know you've had some conversations about this. New York City is a destination for a lot of industries and a lot of businesses, and particularly film and TV. I always complain in my neighborhood, there's a CBS drama that films on my block, and we're always mad about them taking up parking and everything. But I'm actually glad to see that kind of film and television happening in my community. Is just give us a little bit more parking spot. But anyway, so Brian says that there are over 200,000 film and TV workers in the city. What will you do to attract more movies and back to New York City? Because I know a lot of them are going to Georgia or to other places, maybe not now, but at least that's where they're going. And how can we continue to grow that industry here in New York City?
I just got a little private concession. You've been to one of those movie sets when they're filming? Yes. They got some great food. Somebody on the set. You could hit me off a little bit. Going to work on the subway. They're there.
And we're hoping that they're all local businesses.
I'm saying, my man, you listen, that's that look. That they got the big coffee things, man. You get him brother off a little cup of coffee, man. Come on in. Well, you want cream and sugar with it? I should take back. I'm taking mine black, man. I'm just going to Subway. He said, okay, cool. Tip a little bit, move on. So I want the movie sets here because the lunch is good. Most of the time they go on by the time the sun sets. But so the answer is we need to get them here. I need to. This is creativity, right? This is what we need to celebrate. We need to support. We need to invest in. So I will do whatever I can to incentivize the industry to continue to shoot here, to make certain that we have the proper incentives and the wherewithal, the infrastructure that's available to the film and TV industry. We suffered through, we know what we suffered through when we didn't have the fresh film and the fresh TVs. The movie theaters got hit. We know that. And many of us enjoyed the movie theaters, notwithstanding what we can see on a screen, the little screen. The big screen has got a way of, that's an experience for us. And they were making it that much more attractive. And I go from that experience to what makes that experience possible. And you can see the nostalgia, and even not even nostalgia, but you can see the current, how you interact with New York City on the movie set. And that gives you a sense of pride. Like I was there, I know where that place is. That familiarity brings us closer to each other, doesn't it? And so the arts, the movies always have a way of igniting us, exciting us, and inspiring us. So whatever we can do, I would rather not export and have them do some kind of screenshot of New York. I want to import and have them do not a screenshot of New York, but a real live experience with New York. So yes, I love the film and TV industry. They are an important part, a vibrant part of New York City. We need to make sure we got the incentives here. As I've said, for the artists, we need to make sure we get the incentives here for the TV and film producers, and make certain that we take care of the people who produce them. Not only the actors and the producers and the writers, but the stagehands, the people who make this go. And yes, the people who drive the trucks to put it all together, and who take up and down the set, just the people who make it all possible. I want to respect and admire them and celebrate them and let them know that we care, because they make a difference in our lives.
I had one of the things, you grew up in New York, and Law and Order films here, right? And I remember with some friends, we spent a day trying to figure out where Law and Order was filming, to kind of just like be in the background. I don't know if anybody ever played that game. Maybe it's only a New Yorker game, where it's just like you try to find what's filming where, so you can just be like, walk by.
I'm thinking I might be an extra. That's why I walk by. Right? Stephanie Marsh. I was on this morning Instagram Live with Stephanie Marsh. That was like, oh man, I'm such a fanboy. She and her husband are great.
Well, Ray, thanks so much. I know this is the end of the night for you, and I always thankful.
Joy, this is it for us. I was about to go into like the second half, but I got you. You got to go, and I got to be in the field tomorrow. So
yeah, you need to get some rest. Where are you? Where are you tomorrow? You're all over the.
I'm all over. I'm in Harlem. I'm in Queens. I'm in the Bronx. I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in. So I'm going to talk to the people.
Yes, that's definitely what we need. You're going to be in Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village in the morning.
I am. Ron, hanging out with Rod tomorrow. Peter Cooper Village, Stuytown, hanging out with the people. I may take my city bike down there.
Yeah,
I can't take my city, but that's a long way.
Yeah, that's a long ride.
I get down there. I can't wear my Jordans. On the city bike unless I get the motor city bike. Now that's fat. That stuff's hot. That's lit. That's 100.
I have yet to get one of those. You'll be in the Lower East Side. Around.
I got city bike down there too.
Okay. All right. Well, people, you should expect that Ray is out and about. If you want him to come, you want to host a meet and greet, you want to see him out in your neck of the woods in the city, you can go to our website, rayformayor.com. And, you can also email him at ray@rayformayor.com.
Oh, no, Joy. Oh, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Oh, boy.
I'm just giving you.
Look at that.
I'm just giving you a little
I'm going to say it. L-Joy Williams at rayformayor.com. That's the public one. Now, let me give you the real one. I'm going to give y'all the real one. Better yet, y'all can text her. Let me give you her number.
Okay. Thank you so very much for joining us. We'll be back next Friday. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.